Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.com. Again, that's dealtohealteas.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of your social media platforms. And also make sure that you guys are checking us out on our new YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, where you can find not only the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which you are currently listening to, but you can also find our partner podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. There's also two other podcasts that I have on there that we're piloting to, so you guys can check those out and let us know how you like those as well. So again, just check us out on our Deal to Heal Podcasting Network channel on YouTube. Please subscribe. We definitely appreciate it. Even if you don't subscribe, go there, check out the podcast that we have available there. Right. So again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Our product of the week, as you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and one of the things that we do is bring you amazing products that you can purchase to help us to keep stay on the air and pay our bills. So our product of the week is our motto tea for our mission, which is deal with the problem, heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. For those that are watching, you can see it. You can find it also at dealtohealteas.com, which is deal, the number 2, healteas.com, which is our inspirational t-shirt line. So put some inspiration in your situation, wear an inspirational tee, and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Again, our product of the week is our motto tee, which is the Deal to Heal, Deal, Heal, Fulfill t-shirt that's available at our inspirational t-shirt line, the deal, the number 2, healteas.com, dealtohealteas.com. You can find it there. That being said, today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. Quinton Washington. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Mr. Ernest. Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing well.
Great, great, great. Thank you, thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you for being here because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So we're going to jump right into this thing, man. Do me a favor,
All right.
introduce yourself to my audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
All right. Well, my name is well, first of all, before I even give my name, right? My name is Quinton Washington, I get it. But I want to thank you for what you do, Mr. Ernest. I think what you do is tremendous in the essence of people need to talk about the things that they go through, right? I don't think that um we do that enough, talk about the things that we go through, and just to be able to get on a podcast and hear testimonies from other people really makes a difference. So thank you for what you do. All right. So again, Quinton Washington, I'm from Santee, South Carolina, very small town. I live here in Louisiana. Did 22 years in the military. I retired after 22. Um, and called it quits, man. I came home to the family. So I'm married. I do have four kids. Two of them are adults. Two are still home with me, so I'm getting to enjoy them. I actually have two grandkids as well. So I currently work at a high school as a JROTC instructor, but also started my own business. So my business is NCO Publishing LLC. Now the NCO is what I was in the military, non-commissioned officer. But NCO in my business is spelled ENSIYO. It stands for Exit Now for young people that are on the wrong path, right?
Mhm.
Start inspiring youth opportunities. So that's what the NCO stands for when it comes to my business. And I do writing, I do coaching, and I do some speaking.
I love it. I love it. And to my audience already know, but I tell you too. Um, I'm a person for acronyms, so I love acronyms. So definitely appreciate appreciate you doing. And also I want to say thank you for your service. Definitely
Thank you.
appreciate the work that you've done. And I heard you talk a lot about your family. And one thing I know about you is that you are a girl dad.
Yes.
So whenever I have a girl dad on, I have to ask two questions. Number
All right.
one, what does it mean for you to be a girl dad? And then what is something that your daughter has taught you?
All right. Woo, you put me on the spot. All right. So what it means to be a girl dad, for me, being a girl dad is a protector, number one, a provider, and being a man that can live by example and show them what a man is supposed to be. You know,
Mhm.
um, so that's what a girl dad means to me. Something that my daughters have taught me is love and patience. Um, and I can kind of get into that a little bit more as we explore some things, because I haven't always had the opportunity with being in the military to be the dad that I wanted to be.
Mhm.
And now I'm getting to explore that more. So yeah,
Okay. Cool,
yeah,
cool. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
yes,
Can't wait to have you on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, and we'll dive even more into that discussion of just being a fatherhood and being a girl dad. So
right.
for my listeners, make sure you guys check out the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. It's an awesome podcast, if I say so myself. Uh, I get to sit down and talk to other girl dads and daughters. So on some of our episodes, we have daughters actually come on and I have a conversation with them um with because we talk about the daddy daughter relationship, and I
Hmm.
started that podcast in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. And
Hmm.
so we have discussions with other girl dads, like I said, like myself, and sometimes the daughters, and we just really dive into that daddy daughter relationship and what that looks like. So yeah, can't wait to have you on there, man. So let's go back a little bit, right? So right now you mentioned that you are a mentor now, and you talk to students, um, in the school and things of that nature. But even let's go back even a little further before you even start working in the school, and even before that you even went into the service. What
Mm,
was that thing that made you go into the service, and then after you came out of the service, then to still have that mindset that you're going to use that experience to still work with with students? Well, you weren't working with students before you were in the service, but
mm-hmm,
come out of the service and say, okay,
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna work with these students, in the way that you do with building your business.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go back, man. I'm gonna go back. All right. So, number one, my dad served in the military.
Hmm.
Um, and I saw pictures of him. I did. He wasn't home a lot, you know. My mother, she lived with my grandfather. But I saw pictures of him when I was a kid, of him in uniform, and like since I can remember, I've always wanted to like be a soldier, serve in the military, and put that uniform on, right? So he inspired me in that aspect, and I'll be honest, like myself and my dad, we didn't really come up. I didn't come up with him, so to
Hmm.
say. He was kind of in and out. One of the most memorable things I remember my dad telling me is, "Hey son, I'm in the military. You know, don't count on me." That's one of the hard things right there that I had to, take in. And being in the military now, or not being in the military now, but having been in the military, I kind of understand where he comes from a little bit, because now I understand what he was saying, right? Because a lot of times in the military, you don't have a choice. If they say you got to go, you got to go.
Hmm.
So, seeing him in uniform, yes, that inspired me to go into the army. I didn't have him, but I did have my mom, right, who's a strong woman. I had my uncles, who was phenomenal in my life, playing that male figure in my life.
Hmm.
And the ultimate man, like my dad is my grandfather, right? His name is James, as well as James Washington. Um, so here's the thing, Mr. Ernest. Here was that moment for me. So I'm in high school. I'm in JROTC, right? And I would wear my JROTC uniform home. Uh, and when I got off the bus, my granddad, he was getting old, so he would always say like, "Hey, Quentin, are you in the army?" And I'm like, "Nah, granddad, I'm not in the army. I'm in JROTC.
Right.
It's a school program." So that went on for about like, man, 2, 3 years. My 11th grade year in the military, I mean, not in the military, my 11th grade year in high school, I joined the military under this program called Delayed Entry Program, right? So it was my junior year. And so I went to Columbia, South Carolina, signed up, on my way back home. My grandfather, I knew, was in the hospital. Uh, but when my recruiter pulled up to the house, it was a bunch of cars in the yard, a bunch of cars, right? And the pastor was there, and there was a wreath on the door. Now, me, as I'm pulling into that dirt road, I'm ready to tell my granddad, like, "Granddad, guess what? I signed up. I joined the army, right?" And at the same time, he was in and out of the hospital. But when he pulled up, my mom came out of the house. She grabbed me, and he had passed away.
Hmm.
Man, that was tough. And I got discouraged. I'm like, "Why, Lord?" I'm like, I'm doing the whole Moses thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why me? Uh, I got discouraged, and I didn't want to go anymore. You know, uh, but God has a way of doing things. Uh, my grandfather became my foundation for my launch pad, so to say. One of the things that we used to do a lot was play checkers. He loved checkers, right? And like under my floor right now where I'm sitting is this little checkerboard pattern, and it
Mhm.
reminds me that my grandfather is my foundation. I think that's important for people to have when it comes to the tough times in our lives. It's something that you can fall back on and say, hey, I have an angel with me. I have someone with me that can help me progress forward with the challenges that I'm about to endure. And my grandfather has been that rock for me, in many instances.
Okay. Cool. Cool. I want to go back to two of the things that you said. So first of all, um, in my life, I have several servicemen and women, that served in the services, in armed services, in my family. And one of them was my uncle. My uncle was in the he was Marine,
All
and so
right.
there's that picture of him in that suit with the sword. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
just growing up, that was my thing. I'm like, I'm going to the Marines, right? I'm like, I want that suit. You know what I'm saying? I want that sword. I want the whole 9 yards. So
Right.
definitely, I understand your that inspiration from seeing those photos. My dad was in the army. He was a jet
Okay.
mechanic in the army, and in the Air Force. So
Okay.
definitely a lot of pictures of him, in the service too. But that one with
Right.
my uncle with that, what I'm saying, with them blues on, I was like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to the Marines. You know what I'm saying? Um, I won't say unfortunately, but as I got older and I got into high school and things of that nature, I just kind of had not necessarily a change of heart, but a change of occupation. Like I kind of
Hmm.
knew where I wanted to do for an occupation, and that kind of took off. And so I
Hmm.
didn't revisit the going to the service, but it still was, still in my heart. I still wanted to get those blues. And so even
Right.
later on, uh, when I got married and our sons, my stepsons, as because their mom was, they were born for a previous marriage, and I have a daughter from my previous marriage. But when we were married, my sons later on, they went.
Hmm.
Some of them, two of them actually did join the service, and
Okay.
so to be able to go to that, those services and watch them, and then seeing them in the blues, like it,
Man.
it definitely it's something. It's a
Right.
thing.
It
You know
is.
what I'm saying? It's
it's
definitely
it's
a
it's
thing.
motivating. It's motivating, Mr. Ernest. Remember, so I told you how I got discouraged, right?
Mhm,
A factor for me to push forward with my plans um, was my my JROTC instructor. I remember when I first saw him. His name is Sergeant Major Brown. I remember when I first saw him, uh, and this is where vision comes in too. This was my vision, right?
mhm,
Because, like I said, I saw my dad in uniform on pictures, but he wasn't home a lot. So I
mhm.
didn't see the uniform a lot. But in the school, when I saw Sergeant Major Brown and I saw him, and I'm just like, man, I want to be like that dude one day, you know. So it's one thing, and I stress this to young people all the time, right? Uh, it's one thing to be motivated and to be pushed, but it's another thing to have a vision and
Mhm.
something that pulls you. So when I saw him, I'm like, man, I'm locked in, you
Right.
know. And I think that's a part of what like the whole theme for this thing, the faith, focus, and the fortitude is despite all of the distractions in school, the trouble that you could get into and all these other things. Not saying that I was a saint because I wasn't,
Mhm.
right? But in those storms, I always kept my eyes on that lighthouse.
Right.
I knew what I wanted. So, I was blessed to have faith, focus, and fortitude in that aspect. And man, he played a tremendous role in my life because I don't know, man. I was discouraged, but I
Right,
pressed
right.
on.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about those 3 points, those 3 pillars too, because I want to dig a little deep into that. But I want to share something with you, because you mentioned about your grandfather passing away and coming home and he's gone, right, and then still having to find the spirit to still follow through. In my experience, I had two similar experiences,
Hmm.
right? And I talk about, my depression and going through that after my mom passed away. So it was actually my mom and my mother-in-law at the time who
Wow.
both passed away from cancer. But I remember, for whatever reason, just in my own mind, my own feelings, is that I wanted to be there to the end, right? I wanted to be there to the end. And so
Hmm.
um, my mom and my mother-in-law passed away 3 years apart. Um, so my mother-in-law got sick first, and me and my mother-in-law was really close. Definitely loved her. You know what I'm saying? Was really close. And so when she started getting sick, to the point that eventually she had to be, we had to put her in hospice, um, and it got to the point where she was unresponsive. And
Hmm.
I'm just like, man, I wanted to be there by her bedside, and so I would go to the hospice and sit by her bedside and talk to her, hold her hand. And at that time, I'm a bricklayer by trade.
Okay.
And at that time, I had signed up for the apprenticeship to join the bricklayers, join the union as a union bricklayer. And there was a training that would have to go through. The training was like a 2 month training, but the training center was like 3 hours away from
Mm.
where I lived. So when I was to go to that, I would have to stay there. They provided room and board and everything, but I would have to stay there for that time
Mhm.
period. You know, um, and so my idea and my heart was I want to stay with her. And so having a conversation with my wife at the time was, she was the person with the same mindset, sort of like my mom, that was always like, handle your business. You know what I mean? And so having that discussion with my wife, like, man, I really want to stay here, and her knowing also that I, wanted to do this training, she was
Mhm.
like, well, mom would have wanted you to handle your business. She would wanted you to go to this training. And so I'm like, all right, I'll go to the training. I'll come back on the weekends, And so I left that night, Sunday night, going down into this training facility. And the next day I told my instructor, I said, well, I know I'm here, but my mother-in-law is not doing well. And so at any moment, I can get that phone call and then I'm gonna have to go. I'll come back, but I'm gonna have to go. That night she passed away, and
Mm.
my wife called me and was like, hey, she passed away. And
Wow.
so you mentioned about God having a different plan for us, right? And so, like I said, my plan was to be there until the end, but
Mm.
it didn't work out that
It
way,
didn't work out that
right?
way, man.
When my
Wow,
mom got
that's some
sick,
chills to my body.
check this one out. My mom got sick. When my mom got sick, um, she didn't get as sick as my mother-in-law did, where she had to be going to hospice, but yet and
Hmm.
still she got sick. And so my mom lives in the next state from me, about 30 minutes away. And so I
Okay.
would drive, those 30 minutes, and I would go, spend time with my mom. And this one night, me and my wife, we drive over. We're there with my mom, and at this time she's sleeping a lot, and so she's, doing her thing. And so we go over there, hanging out with the family because, we always there, all my sisters and brothers. I got 8 siblings and my dad, so we're all there. So
Hmm.
I'm like, all right, you guys, I'm about to go. Talk to y'all later. We drive from my mom's house to my house, 30 minutes. We get to my house, and literally, as I'm putting the key in the door, my phone rings. And it's my dad. And he was like, your mom just passed.
Wow.
And so, saying that, the reason why I tell those stories,
Mm.
because we have our ideas, right?
Hmm.
Because
Right.
definitely in the sense of with my mother-in-law, with that experience, and also with my mom's experience, I wanted to be there. Like in
Hmm.
those last moments, I wanted to be there. But for
Hmm.
whatever reason that I don't know, but God was like, no, I don't want you there.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so
Yeah,
both of
man.
them didn't pass until after I left. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? And then
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
um
Wow.
we don't always know what's God's,
Man, I'm
his
telling you.
reasoning behind some of the things that he allowed us to experience, but
Yes.
we all just have to believe that it's in our best interest. So
Yes.
while I personally wanted to be there, for his reasonings, that was what he wanted me to do. And so he
Hmm.
didn't take them until after I left in both instances. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? And so in your situation, maybe that was the thing that
Hmm.
he needed you to have to build that foundation, that yeah, you may have wanted it to be like, oh, I'm gonna do this for my grandfather. And then he was like,
Hmm.
no, I got a little different plan. I'm gonna take him,
Right.
but then you'll be able to use that foundation, which
Hmm.
probably became even stronger
It
in your
did.
grandfather's absence than it would have been if he was still here. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so, but we just
Right.
got to believe, that God knows better than we do. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the reason why, he was like, no, I got to move this person, to
Yeah.
be able to get you to focus in the way that I want you to focus. And so that's just
Yeah.
my personal belief. I
Nah,
definitely
nah.
believe
I
that.
mean, you're on it. You're definitely on it because he's one of he's the first thing I think about, when I get myself into the space where I really need to focus, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, initially when things happen, you're not thinking that way. Especially as a young person, I wasn't thinking that way. And then I get into that space where, all right, man, granddad, what's going on? And I can stand on the situation of me wanting to make him proud, and the
Mhm.
way that I felt pulling up into that parking lot and him not there. When I go through things, I kind of get that same feeling, but at the same time, I have to imagine that he's there watching over me,
Mhm.
along with God, next sitting next to God, helping me get through different situations. And
Yeah.
he's definitely done that, man. For me, evidence evidence of faith have been such a motivational, uh, I can't trying to find the right word. The
Yeah.
evidence of faith have been such a motivational factor in my life. You know, um, while serving in the military, I was around 18 years. 18 years, Mr. Ernest, and I wanted to get out. I wanted to quit. I did. I advanced up in the ranks really quick and got a lot of responsibility really fast. And I was taking care of everyone but myself, sometimes but my family. Wouldn't even take care of my family. Um, Being on deployments, man, I would have to put myself in spaces to where, before I went out on mission, I would go into my little room. We call it a hooch, and I would, kiss my family's pictures because I don't know what's going to happen. I've lost people over there that's been close to me too. So in my mind, still pressing on, for me to take care of the people that I'm with, I had to forget about my family in some instances. And when you redeploy, some of that mindset is kind of still there, you
Mhm.
know? And so I had to really exercise some type of resilience to reel myself back into who I am, and that took a while. And then I got to the point where I just wanted to give it all up. At 18 years, I wanted to give up. Like, you know what? I'm done with the army. This is how good it is. And this kind of goes back to what you said, Mr. Ernest. 18 years, I was going to get out, and I was going to go to the high school that I work at now to become a JROTC instructor. At 18 years, that's what I was going to do. That was my plan. I was going to get out. I was going to go work at the school. Well, somebody was there, and I could not work at the school. Right, that position was filled, and I had got selected for the Sergeants Majors Academy there in El Paso, Texas. And only 1% of the military is sergeant majors at a time. The top 1% of NCOs get selected for that school. And I was willing to turn that down to spend time with my family. I was going to get out. I was going
Yeah.
to get out. And here's where the faith come in. I had so I had one of my battle buddies, a first sergeant that I worked with, came into my office. He sat down on the couch and like, "What are you doing here?" Because I had to select whether I was going to go to the school or not, right? And I hadn't selected yet. And he's like, he called me Wash. He's like, Wash, you need to go. You need to go to the school. Blah 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 blah. I had already been away from the family. Now I'm about to go 10 months to a school, and then I don't know where I'm going to take them to after that. I mean, it was just a lot. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm not going. Ultimately, I gave in and said, you know what? Prayed on it. God, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. As I was clearing the installation, basically doing the paperwork to get out of that installation to go to the academy, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a I went to the education center because I had to sign out from there. It was this lady, her name was Miss Linda Bowers, right?
Mhm.
She said, "Hey, young man," before I left her office, she said, "Hey,